Good morning, everyone. This is Raoul Monks from Flume Sales Training. We're doing a mini Flume Sales Chat with Duncan Custerson from Mash Media, who is the event director. And on Wednesday last week, we did a webinar around leading remote sales teams. And there were some brilliant questions. And one of the biggest questions I accidentally but completely ignored, which was from Duncan. So I wanted to just give him the opportunity to voice that question again and hopefully answer something and add where I can to something which is really important to the community, which is around targets. So Duncan, just a tiny bit, tell us who you are, what you do, and also a bit more about this question, and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Duncan Custerson. I'm the event director at Mash Media for International Conflicts, which we were lucky enough to run in February before this whole crisis kicked off. So I've been following the sessions closely and manage a small sales team, although elements of that have been furloughed. I find it an interesting one, targeting. So obviously, fundamentally, salespeople are driven by targets, usually financial, and looking to get comms and bonuses. That's quite difficult from a management perspective right now as to what a target really means and how do we communicate what that target means. Does it mean job security? Does it mean a bonus? And if so, is that delayed? Does it just mean a cuddle and thanks for helping the business along during this time? So it's the question's really about targeting and how we communicate that to our teams.
Okay. So I'm just going to caveat this with, this is so tough. So all I can do is kind of give you my best angle. So a couple of things that I've obviously had a bit of time to have a think about this because I avoided it last Wednesday. But I suppose if I was to start in a kind of almost sort of chronological pattern, I think the first thing that anyone would need to do is, as a business, is to know what good looks like. Like, what do you want to have achieved in the next 3 months, and what is realistic, and making sure that as a business, you know, because that's going to be very different from where it used to be. You know, if you've got events that are no longer happening and there's staff who aren't there, then in terms of what's achievable, it's going to change. So the first, I think, is crystal clarity on what good looks like. And that should probably be in terms of outcomes, but it might be behavioral outcomes. It might not just be around revenue outcomes, although I think they both need to be taken into account. So I think number one is a crystal clarity on what good looks like overall for the team to get to where you need to get to come out the back of this. I think there is an angle that I mentioned just there in that part there, which is around behaviors as well. So we talk about this a lot of Flume, but if you really condense it down, the way that your clients are working right now and how they behave has changed more than it's ever changed ever. The way they're buying and making decisions has completely turned on its head, and what's working in sales is completely different. So for your team to expect them to know how to act right now, and just say you've got to get that outcome without in some way incentivizing or driving or enabling those behaviors is actually probably not fair on the team, because they don't know what good looks like for them in terms of behaviors. So there's another piece here in terms of, can you target around behaviors and demonstration of behaviors to make sure that your teams are operating in the best way for their clients right now and making it easy for their clients to say, yes, you want to connect with you. So it could be a case, and I think I mentioned this in the one of the last webinars, I think the last one, around kind of defining those behaviors. What's the vision for us? Where do we need to be by when? What are the behaviors that are going to help us get there? And using those as a way to incentivize as well, I think can be a really powerful way of doing it. The other couple of angles I think is important, and this came off the back of a conversation yesterday with Maddie Cole from Venture Business, who has worked with remote teams for years, is this idea of, number one, inclusion. So making sure that it isn't just you saying this is what your target is, but actually getting inclusion and buy-in from your team to say, yeah, that's fair, that's realistic, I can achieve that. And I think it's something that sales leaders have always been scared of doing before, because we don't want them to just manage those expectations down and say, yeah, I'm only ever going to make £10 this year. And it's like, okay, fine, there's your target. That's not going to work. But we need to be making sure that they believe they can do what you're asking them to do. So I think more than ever, the inclusion and getting to buy into it's absolutely crucial, but also keep it rolling. So you don't know, just like me, actually where you are going to be by the end of the month. We don't know what the next pivot that this industry is going to take is. And so keeping on a regular weekly basis, okay, let's look at that target. Let's look at what's realistic. What have we learned and what do we need to shift? Does it need to go up or down, or do we need to change what we're targeting around? I think, again, getting the team buy-in and being vulnerable to a degree as a leader, saying, look, we're going to work as a team, but we're going to work together, and I don't know all the answers. So let's create this together, I think is really important, because the only way you're going to get through this is if you come together as a team, and setting targets is often seen as telling someone what to do. This has to be, this is what I believe I can do, and this is what I'm motivated to do. This can then feed down to individual versions of this. So you could say, okay, what's your vision, Pete or Jeff or Jenny or Sue, in terms of 3 months? What do you want to be known for in 3 months' time in terms of what you've achieved here? And let's break that down into, okay, weekly, what would you have achieved, done first, second, third? So they're kind of creating their future, and that gives you a way to run one-to-ones. It gets them to buy into stuff they want to achieve, but again, it makes it personal and all about them. So there's lots of different ideas there, but I suppose the big piece here is knowing what good looks like overall, and inclusion and creativity with them, and making sure that you're keeping it rolling and realizing that what you thought was possible this week might not have been at all possible by the end of the week. So I don't know if any of those are useful.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, Raoul. I mean, I found myself saying a lot over the last few weeks, I'm not the guru, you know, and that's really worked well in opening up the team, in bringing their ideas, and me, like you say, I guess giving a bit of vulnerability and saying we're all working through this together. So let's all bring ideas to the fore, and we might cherry pick one of yours. It might be one of mine. But ultimately we're kind of working through this together. So that makes sense. And I think from the sales perspective, certainly this situation has put good sales technique under the microscope. And, you know, the needs analysis piece is all we're doing right now. And I think that's really important. Actually, something we should all take out of this when we are out the other side of the fog, and you know, use it for an ongoing sales process and our sales, our techniques. You know, because ultimately it's about finding out what the customer wants. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's really useful.
The only other thing I'd add as well, just came to mind as you were talking there, and you mentioned some furloughed workers, and I know a lot of viewers are in a similar situation. I have teams who are. There's a really interesting post last night by a company called Robertson Sumner, who do a Channel Chat podcast that I was on a couple of weeks ago, and they just put out a video saying furloughed workers are still allowed to learn, they're still allowed to train, and you need those people in a brilliant position for when you're bouncing back. So making sure that we're not just thinking about targeting for the people we're working with who are furloughed, but actually how can we help keeping those people motivated who are at home thinking, well, I can't work for this company, but actually they can train and become better and understand customers more. So bit of a plug, but in terms of like webinars and stuff like that, they're free. Like encouraging people to get involved and set themselves their own targets in this time when they're off, I think could be useful as well.
Fantastic. No, that makes a lot of sense. So when am I catching you on the next session?
It's tomorrow at 2 p.m. It's every Wednesday, guys. Tomorrow we're covering the pivot to digital. Thanks for asking, Duncan.
I'll genuinely be there.
Well, we better go, but lovely to catch up, and I hope that answered your questions. Guys and girls who are watching this, if you've got any other questions you want us to answer, then please feed them in, please comment, please share, please like, and please stay safe and productive in these times, and we'll continue to help wherever we can. Thanks, Duncan. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.